So I'm back again, as I said, real soon. So what we're actually doing is a little drill session with the multiple choice papers I have available to me. So all wouldn't be posted today, but there'll be a majority of them. So I'll be doing both the biology as well as integrated science. So I probably would be putting up about 6 or 7, maybe a little more videos today, and the rest will come later on during the week. But as I said, all the papers that I have available to me. So then the next one we'll be doing the May June 2004. Same thing, 75 minutes, same advice, try to finish in an hour or less so you have that time to finesse the rest of your paper and to go back and answer the rest of questions that you may not have known. So let's start. Hopefully, this time I make no mistakes with the reading. I still didn't go and get my glasses, but I'll try. So, item one refers to the relationship between some organisms. So, we have the barnacles on a shark's back, shark and man, and man, malaria protozoan. So, one, which of the following groups, 1 to 3, correctly identifies these relationships? So, commensalism, um, predator prey relationship, or parasitism. We also have mutualism in the bunch here. But the answer would be B, commensalism, the barnacle and the shark on the shark's back. The barnacle is getting something while the shark isn't. The predator prey relationship, man and shark, and also parasitism, man and the malaria protozoan. So the answer B. 2. Which of the following statements about a food chain is true? The answer is A. Energy from the sun is transferred from one organism to subsequent organisms. We saw that in the 2002 paper. So, the next thing, which everybody should know by now, that is that the multiple choice questions, most of the time, they repeat themselves. So, once you do about 10 years minimum, or I should say maximum, but some people, if you have the papers available to you, if you do more, you're sure that more than 50% of your questions are going to come back. Sometimes they may have some new questions in the bunch, and that is expected to mix it up a little bit, but most of the times you'll see questions repeating themselves. The thing that you have to look out for is you may learn this off as answer A, so you just tick that as soon as you start reading. But you have to read because this answer might actually be switched to C, right? So you have to make sure and read it, even though it's the same question and options that are there. The order might be different. So, anyway, 3. Which of the following statements is not true about decomposers? D. They favor low temperatures. Same thing again. So, 4. Which of the following factors is not indicated by the direction of the arrows in a food chain? B. The amount of food each animal eats. 5. A dog killed on the highway by a vehicle, poor thing, is left to decay. Which of the following organisms would be directly responsible? Directly being the main word there that should be highlighted. So get in the practice of highlighting words that you think are important in the questions to help you figure out which is the best option. So which of the following organisms would be directly responsible for returning the carbon and nitrogen compounds of the dog's body to the environment? All of them, all of the options have a part to play. But what are the organisms that has a direct responsibility for that is A, which would be the saprophytic fungi. 6. Spaces between the cells in the human body are filled with A, tissue fluid. 7, we have this whole experimental setup here. We have a capillary tube, the level of liquid after 1 hour, the original level, which was down here. So within an hour's time, that rose to this point here. We have a rubber band, dialysis tube containing sucrose solution 1, and beaker containing water, which is 2. So 1 and 2 is what they're asking about. Any questions here? So the level of solution in the capillary tube rose because there was a greater net movement of, and the answer is D, water molecules from 2 to 1. So we have in this dialysis tube, which is a semi-permeable space here, or semi-permeable membrane, we know that the movement of water from where there's a higher concentration to where there's a lower concentration, which would be more water in the beaker than in the sucrose solution, right? So the water would move in this direction through the process of osmosis, moving from areas of higher concentration or areas of a higher potential to a lower water potential. So whichever definition you work with best, that's the one to use when you're doing paper two as well as when you're answering these type of questions. Item 8 to 9 refers to the following table here, and what it's showing is we're investigating the conditions for digestion of fat. So in all of the test tubes, you'd notice that two things are the same. We have the amount of fat is the same, the amount of enzyme there is also the same. The amount of the third component is also the same, but it's different in each test tube. So 8, which of the following variables is being investigated? That would be A, the pH. So each of these solutions have a different pH level. So you're testing to see the effects of pH on the rate of activity of these enzymes here when it comes to the digestion of fat. And 9, which of the following types of chemical reactions is likely to have taken place? A, hydrolysis. So we know um, the enzyme that is responsible for fat breakdown, which we know is lipase, this does a hydrolysis reaction here. 10. The variation in cellular structure found in any complex organism is due to a process called despecialization. Another word we should recognize for this is differentiation. So you should know the two just in case specialization didn't come, but that's what you've been learning. If they had differentiation here, you may not have known what differentiation is. So it's always wise in cases like this. Next example, the fallopian tube and oviduct. Know the both names just in case either one comes. 11. One of the problems with nutrition for a vegetarian is B. Large amounts of food are needed to supply essential amino acids. 12. The rate at which respiration is occurring in a mammal can be indicated by the rate of D. Oxygen elimination. Item 11. Item 13 refers to the following characteristics. So thin walled surfaces, excellent blood supply, always moist, and large surface area. So 13 characteristics 1 to 4 describe structures that are most likely to be associated with A, the diffusion of gases. Item 14 refers to the following diagram. We know that this is the heart. With the heart, we must always know one time to identify which part is the right and the left side for us to get these sort of questions correct. So 14, in a patient with a certain defective heart condition, it was found that the blood flowed from point 1 to point 2. So this most likely is due to the malfunction of the the bicuspid valve. This is our next case, bicuspid or mitral valve. Should know both names just in case either one comes. So we could identify that this is the right side of the heart. And sorry, not the right side, the left side of the heart. And we know to the top we have the atrium, the bottom is the ventricle. So with this problem, blood is not supposed to be going back here. So that problem or this says that there's a problem with the valve. It's not doing its function of preventing the blood from going back into the atrium and instead going here to go out of the heart. 15. Large organisms cannot depend solely on diffusion for the uptake and transport of gases. So this is because as the organism gets larger, the B, surface area to volume ratio, decreases. 16. Which of the following nutrients supplies most energy per gram? The answer is D, fats. This word is fat here, if you could make it out. 17. Which of the following substances can be found in high proportions in the nucleus? The answer is D, DNA. So item 18 refers to the following table, which shows approximate concentrations of substances in the blood plasma and urine of a healthy man. So you have the substances here, the percentage in the plasma, and the percentage in the urine. So 18, from the table above, determine which of the following statements is not true. So we have A, all the organic food is retained in the blood. B, uric acid is more concentrated in the blood, or well, the plasma here, than in the urine. So this is the uric acid here. C, the water and salts are more concentrated in urine than in the blood. And 4 or D, the urea is more concentrated in the urine than in the blood. So the statement here is asking us which is not true. I feel like I made a mistake with this one. Let's go through it. So all the organic food is retained in the blood. We're looking at the glucose, the proteins. So this is actually correct because we have 0. The uric acid is more concentrated in the blood than in the urine. So the uric acid 0.004 and 0.05. 0.05 is more concentrated than 0.004. So the answer should be B, because the urea is more concentrated in the urine than in the blood. Urea, it is more concentrated in the urea, 2.0, than in the blood, which is the plasma, which is 0.03. So this one should be B, because this is correct. And if we were just to check the last one, water and salts are more concentrated in urine than in the blood. We have water more concentrated in urine and salts more concentrated in urine. So this would also be correct. So the answer should be B. My bad. 19. The normal function of the mammalian kidney is D, to remove or the removal of excess mineral salts. Remember, deamination is not done by the kidney, it is done in the liver to break down the amino acids into to get the urea from it that is sent into the blood, which is excreted or taken out in the kidneys. So 20, the reactants in aerobic respiration are C, glucose and oxygen. Aerobic respiration, we need oxygen. So 21, the alveoli of the lungs of a mammal, the answer B, serves to increase the absorptive surface of the lungs. 22, blood entering the glomerulus of the kidney differs from blood leaving it, since the blood entering has A, more oxygen, more urea, and more glucose. 23, Bones act as storage depots for minerals in the body. The most important of the minerals they store are A. Calcium and phosphorus. 24. Which of the following groups of functions is performed by a rib? The answer is D, which is 1, 2, and 4. So, blood formation in the marrow, 2, protection, the lungs and the heart behind it, and 4, for support. 25. The main function of cartilage at the end of long bones is to C. Reduce friction. 26. Which of the following statements would not represent a form of excretion in plants? The answer is C. Water vapor diffusing through the epidermis. Now, if we look at the others, again, if you weren't sure about this one of them has to be the correct answer here. So the storage of the calcium oxalate crystals in the fallen leaves, we know this is a type of excretion. The gases diffusing through the stomata, I'll come back to that one. Tannins being stored in dead tissue, we know this is also one. So what may have been confusing to you, if you might have selected A for this, is the fact that they said gases diffusing through the stomata. Now, we know the plant also respires and it also releases oxygen as a waste product through the process of photosynthesis, right? So it does excrete gases through the stomata, but water vapor is something that is also excreted. But look at where they are saying that it is removed from. Water vapor diffusing through the epidermis. And they did not specify upper or lower epidermis to even add more body or volume to coming about with the answer. So remember, all gaseous exchange or anything that is lost, all gases that are lost within or from the leaf, this is through the stomata. Once the stomata is open, so the guard cells, once the guard cells are turgid, which they form that little bean shape, you get that there. And this opening here, this is what is called the stomata or the stomatal pore or whichever word you prefer to use, right? So once that is open, the water vapor can leave, the gases can come in, or it can leave. So that is where they went wrong. The water vapor diffusing through the epidermis. It is not through the epidermis. So remember that. This question is something that you'll notice coming up quite a bit. 27. The primary function of the neural spine of the lumbar vertebrae is for A. Attachment of muscles. 28. The eye is sometimes referred to as an effector organ because B. The pupil constricts in the presence of bright light. So remember the effectors, which would be the muscle or gland, they respond to whatever the stimuli is. So that would be your answer. 29. Again, insulin, a protein, is never taken orally because it A. is broken down by pepsin. 30. Which of the following conditions are necessary for germination to take place? We saw this again. The answer being C. Air, food supply, and moisture. 31. Which of the following conditions most directly controls the increase in size, in the flowering plants? The answer would be A. Light intensity. 32. Which of the following features is not a function of the human skin? D. Vitamin B formation. 33. Internal reflection of the eye, of light within the eye is prevented by the C. The choroid layer. 34. If an object is thrown towards you, your eyes blink. So the receptors and effectors for this reflex action are A. The retina receives the information and the eyelids do the action. So that's the effector. 35. Which of the following conditions is likely to promote a lowering of body temperature? C. The dilation of the blood vessels just under the skin. 36. A seedling illustrated from one side bends towards a light source because the concentration of oxygen becomes A greater on the side away from the light. So this is an alternative to the question we saw in 2022 where we actually had the diagram of the plant showing where it was growing straight or like this, whereas the other one was going upwards. 57. When an athlete runs a long distance race, which of the following changes would you expect to take place in his or her body? The answer is B, a drop in the levels of glycogen in the liver. Remember, the body will start breaking down the glycogen to get free glucose molecules to use in the process of aerobic respiration, or even if the athlete switches to anaerobic respiration, we need the glucose. Then 38, which of the following sequence of structures shows the route taken by a sperm cell when it leaves the testes? The answer is A, so it goes from the epididymis to the sperm duct, and last it goes to the urethra. So even if you weren't sure the order that it went in, you know that the urethra should be the last space, which is the exit out of the body. So none of the others have the urethra as the last stop. So therefore, we could eliminate all of these, and we know A would be the answer. 39. Which of the following features are examples of homeostasis in humans? So we have the control of blood sugar levels by insulin, limiting temperature changes, slight fluctuations, differences in the level of female hormones during the menstrual cycle, or changes in the rate of breathing to suit the body's activities. The answer would be C, which is 1, 2, and 4. 40. Pollination is a process by which pollen is transferred from the anther to the stigma. 41. Some plants, such as the leaf of life or wonder of the world, we know these plants are common here, can be propagated from buds on the leaf margin. So the buds develop into complete plantlets while still attached to the leaf margin. So these plants also flower and produce seeds. So the development of the plantlets and the seed is D. Takes place by meiosis for the seed and mitosis for the plantlets. So remember, whenever we have seed formation, fertilization had to take place, which means that we had to use the pollen and the egg or the ovum. But with mitosis, this is the formation of buds, right? This is asexual reproduction. They are basically clones of the parents, whereas whatever was formed via the seeds, this would be through meiosis, where we have some variation might be taking place there. It would not be identical to the parents. The 42, which of the following processes will produce clones? B. So that would be 2 and 3. 2 being the development of plantlets, what we just read before, and 3, the propagation of sugar cane from cuttings. 43. In which of the following organs does meiosis occur? The answer is C, the testes of the mammal. I think we met that in 2002. 44. In which of the following parts of the plant would you expect the process of mitosis to occur? So you'd expect this in the region D behind the root tip. If you could remember that, so let's say this is the root tip here, we had that would be the root cap to protect the cells here. And this area where you'd have all of the small cells be in the meristematic region where those cells never specialize, but they just keep their purpose is to make and continue making more and more cells. And as we go up, we find the region of elongation, etc., where specialization begins occurring. Um, 45. Which of the following combinations of sex chromosomes is found in the nuclei of non reproductive um, cells of humans? So remember, all of the cells will have this material, which is D. We'll have XY for male and XX for female. This one has XY for male, yes, but YY, this is not female. And the only one with XX for female is D. So D is the correct answer. 46. In a particular breed of dog, long hair, which is represented by L, is dominant to short hair, which is Z. So a certain cross produced some long haired and some short haired pups. So which of the following crosses would most likely have been the genotypes of the parents? So from this here, we could work it out. So you will have space right in the corner here to draw your little Punnett squares and all of that. Or you could do it simple by just drawing the lines to see what you would get. But it's whichever way is most comfortable to you that wouldn't confuse you. Or some persons, they could just look at it and work it out in their head. So it's whichever level you are at. If we cross, we know this is homozygous dominant, the both of them. All of the pups would be dominant or homozygous dominant for long hair. So it's not that. This one here, two homozygous parents, we said earlier, or not earlier, in the previous video for 2002, that once we have two homozygous parents for each of the traits, then we are only going to get heterozygous offspring. Heterozygous offsprings, we're dealing with dominant and recessive traits here. All of them, once they have the L, they are going to show that characteristic, as the recessive is going to be hidden. So all of them, again, would belong here. If we do this one, again, all of them are going to be long-haired because we're going to get some that are homozygous dominant, but we're also going to get two that is not recessive, sorry, heterozygous, but they still have the L, meaning that they are going to show that dominant trait. So the answer would be C, where you have a heterozygous parent and a homozygous recessive parent. In this case, what we'll get two heterozygous that will be their phenotype will be long here, and we get two homozygous recessive, and this is the only way that the recessive trait will be shown once it's in the homozygous recessive state. So C will give us that combination of pups, some having long while some having short hair. 47. Which of the following processes may be used by man to change the characteristics of a particular organism in a short time? The answer would be 1. Genetic engineering. Why did I take so long to say that word? Anyway, genetic engineering, short space of time. We know natural selection is a no-no, so the answer could have been 1 or 2 if we were thinking about it. So just by the process of elimination, again, if you weren't sure, 1, 2, and 3. So answer B, C, and D all has 3. So we could have eliminated all of that and just ended up with A as the answer. But once we know the work, this is from section C of the syllabus, we would know, yes, man controls things with artificial selection, but this doesn't take a short time. This takes a long time compared to genetic engineering. 48. The same species of hibiscus plants were grown on two garden pots near to each other. So one pot, which was well watered and manured, produced large flowers. The other pot contained sandy soil and produced small plants with leaves that were reduced in size. So the hibiscus plants, D, were responding to their environmental difference. That's the only thing there that we can say could cause the difference. And well, the other answers don't make any sense. Then 49, pathogens are best described as organisms that A, cause diseases. So we met the question, but it was in another form. They were asking what is the name of the organism that causes diseases. So you see how they can switch it or flip it around, but all in all, it's the same thing. Once you know the material, you're good to go. 50. Which of the following treatments does not provide a form of immunization? The answer is C, isolation of the infected person. 51. Which of the following statements is true of antigens? The answer is B, they cause the production of antibodies. 52. Which of the following sequences are a direct result of diseases in man? The answer is B, 1 and 2. That's a direct thing. The loss of livestock and crops is indirect. 53, waterlogging of soil results in the death of soil organisms because C, the organisms cannot respire due to the lack of air. They need oxygen in the air. As well as the roots also need air for respiration. So 54, which of the following factors is not associated with rapid increase in human populations? The answer is C, less pollution from households and industries. 55, which of the following features is an advantage of using inorganic fertilizers rather than organic manure? The answer is C, they make nutrients available more quickly. 56. So an open field was investigated using meter quadrats. So in five random throws, species A occurred as shown in the table below. So this data can be used to determine the density of these species as well as its frequency. How often does it show up? Item 57 to 58 relates to the following graphs, which show the growth pattern of several populations. So we saw this, but in a different form. They just added on an extra question here. So 57, which of them shows the organism has a good food supply and is not subject to environmental stress? That would be B, that is still in its exponential phase. And the extra question, 58, which of them shows this population that has reached its equilibrium and there is a delicate balance between the birth rate and the death rate? That would be C, because C has passed its log and lag phase and now it's in the exponential phase. Um, we already know this one is still in the exponential phase. This one is in the death phase here. And this one is also drastically decreasing. Item 59 refers to the following characteristics. So thick, hairy leaves, concealed stomata, and deeply penetrating root system. So 59, these characteristics most likely belongs to a plant which grows in a region that is A, warm and dry, and 60, all the individuals of a particular species living in a defined area or location are referred to as B, a population. Now remember, they're saying all the organisms of a particular species, right? That's the population there. So if they were saying all of the organisms living in the area, then that would be a community. If they said everything in the area, then that would be the environment, because everything is referring to all of the biotic and abiotic factors. And well, we know the niche has nothing to do with that. That is the role of the organism in its environment. So that's the end of 2004, paper 2 from May June. So once again, same thing goes. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you think any of my answers are wrong, you could also let me know in the comments and we could discuss it so we could clear up whatever problem to know if I was wrong and I made the adjustment, or if you were a bit confused, I could help with the further explanation if you need that. So remember to like, share, subscribe, and I really hope that this helps with your upcoming exams. Thank you if you stayed straight to the end. Bye.